But I want to start in my beginning, which is when I was really young. And some of you know this as a part of when I introduced myself years ago when I came to MCC. I had a best friend growing up, and her name was Megan. And Megan was a year older than me, and I thought she was everything, right? Because she was a year older than me. So she went to kindergarten first and told me what kindergarten was going to be like. And we walked together, and she was the responsible one taking us to the bus stop. But we were best friends. And a part of being best friends, we wanted to wear our hair matching, right? We wanted to have matching hairstyles. Well, Megan had blonde, thin hair, and mine was dark, black, thick hair, right? And so, and her hair was very straight, mine very curly and kinky. And so our parents decided, all right, you guys can wear 2 French braids to the back. And that's what we did. When we wanted to wear our hair alike, we would wear 2 French braids to the back. And it was in my time with Megan that I realized there was difference between herself and myself. And in that difference, I did not create a hierarchy of what was better and what wasn't. I just recognized that there was difference. Hot summer day, we're playing outside. I recognized her hair would react to her sweat like glue and just kind of stick to the sides of her face. Mine would act as if the sweat was an accelerant, right, for my hair, and it would begin to puff up and just kind of grow, right, and become a very different hairstyle than what I had started off with. And I didn't see that as a bad thing, right, but I began to understand that there were those in society that stigmatized my hair and those in society that celebrated my hair. And I began to understand that this difference that I had recognized, there were those in society that did create a hierarchy on that difference. And as I got to high school, I had received enough messaging where I believed that my hair in its natural state was less than. I believed that my hair needed to be straightened in order for it to be right, R-I-G-H-T, right. Going into professional spaces, it was this understanding that your hair in its natural state looks unruly, right? Or it looks immature, right? Unprofessional. You can see how I wear my hair today, and I did that purposefully for this talk, right? Now let me take a step back before I get to high school and talk about a time when I celebrated my hair. My family celebrated my hair. I was taught that working with my hair was a form of self-care. My hair takes a lot of time to do, right? We're talking, if I'm going to the salon, it's gonna be several hours. When my cousin would come over and braid my hair in intricate braiding styles, it was a day-long process. But that wasn't a burden. That was looked at as a celebration. It was looked at as a time for me to spend with my cousin. She would pour into me about my hair. And I would always ask her to put little beads, decorative beads on the end, something that I do with my own daughter, or did, because now she's 13 and that's too cool. But when she was younger, it was very much a process for us to spend that time together, for me to pour into her, for us to have time to talk about different things and just connect in a special way. And so I had all of those memories growing up, but when I got to be a teenager, it was clear that those memories and those times weren't enough for the other messages that I was receiving. And so I decided to straighten my hair through a chemical process called a relaxer. And didn't have any issues with having the relaxer, the chemical process in my hair. It was fine. I know those with straight hair do the opposite, right, with a perm to create a consistent curl pattern in your hair. Well, for mine, it was taking the curl out of my hair and straightening it. Did this for many years, but once I had my daughter, I realized that I wanted to go back to celebrating my hair instead of leaning into the stigmatized thoughts about what my hair meant to other folks, right? Because I don't know if I ever really internalized it as it meaning that to me. I don't know if I ever really internalized my hair as a burden. I think I just internalized what other people thought. And so I was ready to push those thoughts away when I had my daughter, because I didn't want her thinking that she had to alter herself in order to be accepted for who she is. So I stopped the straightening methods, and even though occasionally I will straighten my hair, but it's done in a temporary, just with heating tools, not with any type of chemical. But I decided to really lean into the feelings that I had when I was young, where my hair is a form of self-care, and me creating different hairstyles with my hair is something that I get to do that's special for me. And you all will notice I change my hair a lot on campus, and that's because I can, right? It's because that's a part of me loving on myself and appreciating myself, including what's growing out of my head, and showing my daughter and my son even that that's a part of who we are. We get to make these choices about our hair and do different things. My son's hair right now is about this long. He's chosen to grow it out. And I love that he has chosen to do that and express himself in that way. I don't know how long it will last. But if and when he decides to cut it off, I know that he will have that same root of love that I have, and that I've instilled that same root of self-care in him that I was instilled with my family, where you might go through something where society tells you one thing, or your friends even might tell you another, or even the people that you decide to connect with in a partnership tell you something different than what you know to be true. But I will rest assured knowing that I have done the work to invest the time in my children, to show them that a part of loving yourself is loving your hair, and it's very natural state.
Okay, so I gotta hide the rest of the screen for a little bit here.
Oh, okay.
So we're good. So I'm gonna introduce you to a couple of people that are pretty near and dear to me. It's my parents, and I thought, it's a good place to start when I talk about hair, because my dad's hairstyle, I don't think it has changed at all in the 50 years I've been around. I think if I look at old pictures of him, it's always cut fairly short, and it's always combed over to the same side, spin that way. My mom, when she one of the running jokes when she used to come and visit a lot of times is that she spent so much time making sure her hair was in the exact right spot. I mean, those strands of hair that you see here, they never moved. I mean, they really, she was meticulous in making sure everything was the same way. But she also had a very similar haircut or hairstyle for most of her life, for most of the time that I knew her. And I think for a lot of people, and I'm going to probably more on the Caucasian side than the African American side, we tend to get set in a hairstyle right around in our 20s or thereabouts. And then we don't change too much because we found what we're comfortable with, and that's where we stay. So I was going to think a little bit about that and say, how did we get to that point? And so I'm going to have to do a little bit of psychology, just very, very briefly, just because I can't help myself. Erik Erikson is one of my favorite theorists. He came up with the whole life stage development that actually went beyond the 20s or so. Initially we stopped developing, if you go back to Freud and some of that, we stopped developing around 18, 20 years old. That's what the thesis was. And Erikson recognized, I'm still doing this. So we need to expand this. And his model went a little bit further. He talks about psychosocial stages of development, and so the adolescent stage, who am I? It's a central question. About 12 to 18, 11 to 19 years are kind of not as important, but the whole question you're trying to figure out is that who am I? It's a question of identity, and it's a question of role confusion. So you try to really find your place in the world, in the bigger picture. So I'm going to introduce you to a young man. He is 13 years old in this picture, I believe. Notice the green curtains and matching bedspread with white hearts on it. I can tell you that this is a person whose haircut was very much determined, much like the bedspread and the curtains, by his mother, because that's what we did. So in Norway, there's this big. The big rite of passage in Norway, the first one you really get to is confirmation. It happens right around 15 years old, and it's more a cultural tradition than a religious tradition. And so when it was time for confirmation for me, as you can see, I had my hands on the guitar fairly early on, and that was part of it. I liked that whole rocker not lifestyle, I like the rocker image. Let's go there. And so I wanted to grow out my hair long. I really wanted to. So for my confirmation, my mom said, no, you can't, but we'll compromise. And what's better than the mullet, right? And unfortunately, I don't have access to that picture right now, or fortunately for me, I should say. But that was the last time I cut my hair for a long, long time. And so by the time I graduated high school, this was what I was looking like. Slightly different. And I kept that hairstyle for a long time until, so it goes back to this whole idea of identity, right? Because this was who I really felt like I was. This was who I wanted to be. This was the part of me that was exactly who I thought I wanted to be. And the hair is one of the things that's the only thing on the body really that we can change without it being permanent. And that's one of those things that struck me when I was looking into some more things for it. Is that was such a big part of my identity. People used to joke back in high school that they could imagine me sitting in the rocker in an old person's home or in a care facility, and just with my long hair. So fast forward a few years. So this was right around 19, 20 years old. And I started working at a place called Center for International Health. I was working with computers, and I'll never forget, the first day I came in, my new boss said to me, sat me down and said, we might have to have you cut your hair because we're working with people from other cultures and they might take offense to the length of your hair. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to cut my hair. I was 100% said that was not going to happen. So what ends up, well, I forgot about this thing that I put in there too. So there's this, and this really ties into it, is that hairstyles and rituals surrounding hair care and adornment convey powerful messages about a person's beliefs, lifestyles, and commitments, inferences and judgments about a person's morality, sexual orientation, political persuasion, religious sentiment, and in some cultures, socioeconomic status can sometimes be surmised by seeing a particular hairstyle. It's a long way of saying that hair is important for our identity and who we are, and that people make judgment based on what you look like, based on your hair, which is exactly what Leslie was just saying as well, right? And that was what he did. That was what my boss did. So luckily, he didn't last long. He found a new job after about a couple of months on the job, and the first thing I did, well, not the first thing, but pretty close thereafter, was I decided it was time. So I cut my hair. Now I'm going to be grown up. So we're talking early 20s. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be grown up. I'm going to be the grown up person myself. And so this is what I look like. Once again, the guitar is always there for some strange. I didn't find any good pictures of myself without a guitar, and I figured that was okay. But I think it's important because all the way around I played with stereotypes. And I think that's the key thing, because if you would have seen me with the long hair, the thing that I also don't have a picture of right here is when I had the long hair back in high school, I also wore a jean jacket. And jean jackets, they tend to get really comfortable after a while. And it got so comfortable that even when it started And this was not a predetermined, okay, so there's some tears, some rips, some holes, some of those things. It was almost falling apart off of me at one point. So I really looked I looked the part of a rocker, right? I looked the part. However, there's that other, it's that drinking and drug thing. I didn't do it. When I grew up, I did not drink. I did not do any kind of drugs at all until I got my hair short. That's when I had my first sip of alcohol afterwards as well. And I had a friend walking up to me and saying, you know what, you're kind of opposite, because you'd think that you were this guy who was just all off his head on alcohol and dope all the time, but you're not. So that was the first time I realized or recognized that I was breaking the stereotype in many ways. And I've been liking the idea of playing with stereotypes ever since. Another stereotype was that you're not too smart, especially when you, in that time of this was a little bit later than Katie, was not that much, late 80s, early 90s. Still, you are not supposed to be coherent in your thought, coherent in your speech. If you had long hair and was a guy, definitely no one expected that. So for me to do that at that point was another way of playing with stereotypes. Then I got to this short hairstyle, and I'm still playing with stereotypes, because one of the things I enjoyed doing was if I drove down place and I felt like it, I would crank up the stereo, and the music I'm listening to is not exactly the quiet music at all. We're talking some serious Slayer and heavier stuff. We're talking the extreme side of heavy metal, and I would blare it extra loud sometimes just to say, you know what, I'm not that straight-laced. That's okay. And so finally, it's all about coming back into yourself, right? So finally, for Katie, it was the divorce. For you, it was the birth of your daughter. For me, it was actually going back home again. I went back home in 2014, and I think it started with me just not having brought a razor with me, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to shave while I'm there. And then I came home, and I call this look, by the way, I call it lazy man, because I really don't do anything. I don't get it trimmed. I don't do much of it. Every now and then I get it trimmed. I can't lie completely, but mainly don't do anything with it. So it's a perfectly comfortable way of being for me. But I think that comfort part is the most important one. For me, it kind of came full circle when I got a note from Jim Luca, who some of you might know. He was a counselor here a long, long time ago. And he said something that he saw that I had not been, I had not turned into the lean, mean counseling machine, was what he said. But it looked like I was comfortable in my own skin. And that is definitely where I'm at today. So that was my story.
All right. So that's our presentation. Does anybody have questions or comments? I do want to point out one of my hair goddesses right over there.
I
Karen.
hated my hair. I was teased every day in school. I'm the youngest of those babies, so my older brother at the time was in 5th grade, and he actually punched out Ray Doty's sister because she called me in front of him. But and I was much younger anyway. And so for me, it was a real struggle, that whole identity thing, because I was a 70s kid too, so straight, long hair, and I didn't have any of that. And in Greenville, my mom even took me to Grand Rapids to get my hair styled one time, and it was a young girl just out of school. She didn't know what to do with my hair either. So it was in Greenville, at that time there was a bunch of old ladies with hair salons in their garage. That was kind of what the hair scene was, so nobody could do anything with my hair. But then when I got to college, I had to live with other girls, and I'm like, oh my God, they spent so much money, so much time, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, I didn't even have a comb, I didn't have a brush. I mean, I just shake my head, and I'm good to go, right? I might put some something to define my curls, which I still do now, but I did the whole I had really short hair. I had it shaved on the side, had a nice tail at the back in college. And some guys wouldn't date me because they wouldn't go out with somebody that had shorter hair than they did, right? Kind of thing. But then when I got into public accounting, I had to cut off the tail and start growing it out more for that kind of thing. And that really bothered me, and so I was glad when I got my license, because then they could fire me, I guess, if they didn't like my hair anymore, but I started just doing whatever I wanted to. And I really like it because, like, if I wake up in the morning and on the weekend especially, a headband, yeah, and it just kind of, and I'm good to go. So I like it now.
I think curly hair must be, I don't know, I feel like there's always such a story behind curly hair because I, for years, straightened my hair. And now I look back and think, why did I waste all that time? You know, and so, and then again, I too grew mine out, so I could just have my curls, and it's just so much easier.
It's so
But
easy.
my most endearing story, though, is my great grandmother. She developed cataracts and was blind through my childhood. So they would always, when we went down to visit, and I would go up and they would put her hand in my head, and she would say, "Oh, it's Kathleen's baby," because she couldn't see me. So that always cheered me up. But so that was the only real joy in when I was younger, because I got teased all the way through high school about my hair, unfortunately.
That's interesting. Anybody else want to make a comment or a question?
I never have settled on a hairstyle. I'm always changing mine. I even have
Good for you, Barbara.
boxes of colored dye at home waiting to go into my head. And I used to get my hair cut every year, but it just annoys me after so many months, and I have to go get a different haircut.
Good for
That's
you.
great.
And I do have to say, Kurt was kind of sad we didn't ask him to contribute.
My only comment would be that I went through much what you did. I was very conservative in high school, short hair for sports and things like that. But when I left high school, I grew my hair long at one point. I had a very big ZZ Top beard when I was in.
Oh, we need
We're
pictures.
going to see
And when I left college, I had to get my hair cut to a more professional look. So I embraced that. And then I hit mid-30s when I started to lose my hair. And a lot of my friends started teasing me relentlessly. And it bothered me to no end. And I had two choices. And I said, I can let it bother me, or I can embrace it. And that's exactly what I did. And I embraced it. And, if someone tries to tease me, I make a better joke than they do. And we just keep going. And quite frankly, it is the easiest hairstyle I've ever had. I can shower and be out of there in 5 minutes.
All right.
I save money on haircuts, shampoo, conditioner, all that stuff. But being comfortable in who you are, I think, is the most important.
That's right. Michelle?
Most of you were around when I had no hair, and going through chemo. They tell you it's going to be 2 weeks after your first chemo, and it's going to fall out. And it wasn't like falling out like I thought yet, but when you do this, and you always got some hair on your hand or whatever, and it was just a little more, so it was empowering to shave it before it fell off. And then I thought I was being fashion forward, and I didn't know what I was doing. So on Amazon, I found where you could get these little turban things in all the colors, so I was going to be color coordinated every day. I went to the hat rack in Greenville, and this old lady, because old ladies can do it, so that's the ugliest thing I can even imagine. So look around here and find something, and I want to thank you guys again for the donation. And I did buy a wig, but I only wore it once. I wore it when I went to the Neverland thing. Lisa Lund was sitting beside me, didn't know who I was till I told her. But that's the only time I wore the wig. But it was a lot to lose my hair, and then finally I just got rid of wearing the bandanas or the hats or all the things, and it was about that long, white gray.
Mine came in gray.
So my
The first time I shaved it again.
Matt and I got married, that's what my hair looks like in my wedding pictures. It's about an inch long and curly and gray. And I still can't figure out what I want to do with it,
That's all right, you endured it. Does anybody else have a remark they want to share or question?
You know, I'll just say a really brief thing. I'm more aware of it because I'm retiring in 1 year, 8 months, and 12 days. Every morning, I am who I am on the weekend. That's me. That's just who I am. And it's in a t-shirt, in my ripped up jeans, roll out of bed, slap a hat on, and I'm covered in dirt. That's when I'm full of pure joy. And then Monday morning rolls around, and A, I have to get out of bed early, and B, I put on my girl clothes, and I do my hair, and every morning now I leave going, okay, this is the work Debbie, who has to make herself, I don't want to scare children is what I say, who has to make herself look like this, but then Friday comes along, and the real me comes out. And it's interesting to start comparing who I really am to who I pretend to be Monday through Friday. But yeah, and hair has been, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so the hair thing is a big deal. And then I went to beauty school, which really made it a big deal. But it's interesting to think about. That, you know, I won't go out of the house to a public place without doing something. And I look forward to the day when I don't do that.
Very good. Anybody
I
else?
appreciated Leslie's comments with your children because, you know, all that I went through, I didn't want my kids to have anything about their hair, so they got to do, I didn't care what they do with their hair. And my son, he was here earlier this morning, he's a big tall guy, he's a cop, so now he keeps it very short. But he went through when he was born, he had brown hair with white tips, looked like I had taken him to a beautician and got his hair frosted. And my sister-in-law is one. So so that kind of set the stage for, he had about every different kind of color in hair when he was in elementary school. He had a mohawk, he had a reverse mohawk. And
Oh, yikes.
yeah, and my family just had a fit, but it's like, I don't
That's
know,
him.
I only have to, there's lots of battles, his hair is not gonna be one that I'm gonna take. He was a sophomore in high school, he had very long hair, played baseball, everybody called him a hippie, he didn't care. But then it got to be, he just keeps it really short now. But I let him do all that, he was very confident, and I think that was more what I wanted. I wanted to give them that sense of confidence to be just who they wanted to be with whatever hair they decided hairstyle they had. Yeah.
My
I love
son
that.
woke up one morning in 4th grade and said that he wanted blue hair.
Yeah.
And he was quiet, shy, grumpy sometimes, but quiet and pretty straight-laced. And so my ex-husband's like, we'll go. We went to the mall, we asked them. We weren't gonna pay their prices, and then we found out that with the dark hair, you had to go blonder. And my daughter was in 2nd grade, so I asked her what she wanted to do. So they were both orange for 2 weeks because you can't go from brown to blonde. She got called Pumpkinhead by a bully on the bus. And then we dyed it again, so they were blonde. Josh had like a blue mohawk and some blue around here. Jessica had blonde with red and blue, and those happened to be school year pictures. And
Even better.
when we did our open house, she did retakes, and she didn't want those out, but they were out, and we just kind of let them embrace it. And then they never rebelled about anything after that.
Must be pretty worth it for all of it. Anybody else? Okay.